Hi, welcome to Girl Talk. We are filming our show today at the Ultimate Veritas Spa Salon, and I want to make sure you stick around. We've got a great lineup of guests and a big makeover reveal at the end of the show, so we're going to have a lot of fun today. Right now, we are kicking it off with Laura Gallagher. She's with The Creative Company. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
I'm so excited about our topic. So we're talking about storytelling, and I'm curious to get us going, what got you interested in storytelling for business?
So 10 years ago, I was at a conference in Portland, Oregon, with a man named Donald Miller, and he had written this best-selling book called Blue Like Jazz. And this conference itself was all about the stories that we're telling with our lives. Well, of course, this is applicable to business too. What kind of narrative is already out there in the marketplace about your company? And is it the narrative that you want being told? And if it's not, how can you change it? Because that's the great thing about stories, is that they're always evolving. And so you can weave a new story into the marketplace. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes sense, and it's so interesting to talk about that for business.
And I love storytelling, but why do you think storytelling is so powerful?
It's how we make meaning. It's how we make sense of the world. Through metaphor or through story is just how we learn, really. And it even goes before there was probably written language.
Right.
And you mentioned this a little earlier about business. Can you give us an example of how storytelling and business work together?
Right. So just this last week, Starbucks came was on probably every major news channel with their story, and that wasn't a great story that was being told. But notice what they did. They did not allow their story to be hijacked, and they instead acknowledged what was going on. They acknowledged it very quickly, and they said, we agree. This is unacceptable. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to close all of our stores, and we're going to do some training. That was Spielberg level theater, kind of a move, right? Right,
yeah.
But they took the narrative back. And they said, no, that's not who we are. We are this kind of a company. We value our employees and we value our customers. That's a great story.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. I kind of have a little bit of goosebumps going on. I always do have that
right.
with you, Laura. But I love the topics that you bring to the table here. But that's such a good point about really owning the story and making it right versus kind of trying to sweep it under the rug and letting everyone else write your own story. You just have to sometimes step up and do the right thing. And I think that really applies to us as individuals as well. So let's take this topic of storytelling and help us apply it to ourselves.
So one of the exercises that we did at that Storyline conference in Portland was that we had to write an obituary. So how does a story end in the story of your life? And what do you want people to say about you? And are you living into that story presently or not? And if not, what can you do to live a better story? So for each one of us, and I know I just kind of went doom and gloom there, but truly, being a thoughtful human being on this planet requires that we think about the story that we're living with our lives. We can sit and watch, television all day long or kind of, waste it. But life is a gift. Yeah. So, to live it intentionally and with meaning and purpose, and to be the kind of human being that you want to be the kind of mother, to be the kind of coworker, to be the kind of person in your community that you really want to be, that takes some intention. So if you're not living that kind of story, the good news is that you can essentially write a new story with your life.
I'm going to be thinking about this all day, literally.
Well, and I think that's the point, is to be thoughtful in your actions as a human, as a business owner, as a person in a business, and to your point, thinking about the end goal. Maybe a little morbid to think about an obituary, but at the same time, it's important because you want to live in the now, but you also want to have a plan that goes with your future as well.
Exactly, and that's true for businesses too. We just have to make sure that we're owning the narrative, understanding the pain point that we're trying to solve for our customers, and making sure that that's really being communicated. When a company or an individual goes to your website, you have 6 seconds to tell your story, so that message has to be crystal clear. And you're in charge of it, not them. You're in charge of it. You are the guide. They are the hero. What is it that you need to resolve for them or solve for them, or how can you help them to achieve their goals as the hero? It's never about us. It's always and forever about the other person.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
important to think about that. I'll brag on you for a second before we head to break. Laura and the team over at the Creative Company you're an absolute genius at helping businesses write their story and let their story be told and heard. So thank you for sharing
Thank
some of this with us.
so much. That was very kind.
We've got more Girl Talk coming up after the break, so stick with us.